you.
Good evening and welcome to our 8 p.m. live on YouTube. You're live with me, Faye D'Souza. Thank you for joining us. I know there's a lot of news in the country right now, but we're taking a break from the news today because I've had conversations with so many of you who are talking about feeling anxious, feeling depressed, in some cases feeling suicidal as well. Now, several things have happened. The lockdown and the virus has sent millions and millions of Indians into isolation and unemployment and stress about your health and your family's health and your possibility of your family members being unemployed as well. To give you an understanding of the kind of things I've heard from people saying that they aren't able to sleep, that they feel anxious, that they're worried or what they call stressed all the time. They feel sort of heaviness in their chest. So you're not able to breathe as easily, and you wind up doing this a lot because it just feels really heavy in your chest. You find yourself isolating emotionally as well as physically, which means that you're not taking calls from your friends, you're not talking to people. You want to avoid interaction. You don't have to explain to your friends or your family members what's going on with your life, so you just don't take their calls. You wind up being more and more alone. You spend a lot of time doing nothing, which is just sitting around and thinking, not actually feeling like you want to be active. For a lot of us, the closing of gyms and the closing of public spaces has meant that we're not as physically active as we used to be. So we're in our house all the time. And even though there are enough of these videos doing the rounds of, oh, you can work out in your house and you can do yoga in your house, it's very difficult to motivate yourself to do that. So you wind up not doing it at all. There is a sense of fear that you may either lose your job or you've already lost your job or you're running out of savings. There is a sense of anxiety and stress about whether or not your loved ones are safe or whether you've got the virus. Every time you read news, more and more information about more cases, people dying, bodies being thrown into pits, people not getting hospital beds, people being left out on the roads. All of this information creates stress of what if this happens to me? What if this happens to my parents? How will we deal with it? Also, when we feel like we're reading stories about people in rural India, or people who had to, migrant laborers who had to walk, people who were run over by trains, this sort of bad news that's not necessarily happening to you, but it's happening to someone else. There's a feeling of guilt that you have everything or that you are surviving everything or you're not doing enough to help other people. All of these feelings have to be recognized as anxiety and stress, and we have to deal with it. A lot of times we tend to think that we're supposed to just sort of suck it up and move on and walk it off or be normal. Everybody's dealing with this. Other people are dealing with worse things. What's wrong with you? These are exactly the things not to say to your loved ones. And the thing that worried me most of all was the number of cases of suicide, or what we're hearing as copycat suicides after Sushant Singh Rajput passed away. And the reason why I brought this up specifically, I decided that today we're going to do this, is because just yesterday there was a 45-year-old woman in Mulund in Mumbai who was found hanging in her home, and her family says that Sushant Singh Rajput's suicide affected her condition. And she was talking about it a lot. She kept referring to it as a good idea. And this is typically what is known as a copycat suicide. And I realized that, there might be lots of conversations news-wise that we could be having about China, and we could be talking about the economy. But reaching out when it comes to this is the most important thing that we can do right now. So this is what we're doing. Over the next 1 hour, we're going to talk about what anxiety feels like, what depression feels like, and what we should be doing if we're having those feelings or if we notice them in the people around us. and how we can save and reach out to the people around us without scaring them and without pushing them away. We will take as many questions as we can on the chat window. So please, we're starting now. We're going to go on for at least an hour. Please inform your friends and family if you want them to watch this video as well, because we're going to try and in this next 1 hour give you as much information as we can that should be of use to you. Let me quickly introduce my guests. We have Dr. Shubhangi Parkar, who's a professor of psychiatry at KM Hospital. Doc, thank you so much for making time for us. I'm very, very grateful. Dr. Harish Shetty, who's a very respected psychiatrist, will join us as well. He's just on his way, from what I understand. Rohit Kumar, who's the CEO of Apni Shala Foundation, who spends a lot of time with students, is joining us right now. And so is Harish Iyer, who is an LGBTQ activist. And the reason why I insisted Harish be part of this show is because there is a tremendous amount of stress in the queer community as well. And we have to be able to reach out to them and find ways in which we can make everybody comfortable. Oh, I see Dr. Shetty. Good evening, Dr. Shetty, and thank you for joining us. So questions coming in, we're going to try and take as many questions as we can. But first, I want to talk to each of you about what you've experienced from the people you are talking to. Dr. Shubhangi, if I may ask you first, are you getting a lot of people coming to you with stress, with anxiety, with extended depression because of the lockdown?
Yes, because the events were like that, like right from the first lockdown till this lockdown, I met the people and who were calling was the people actually lost somebody due to the COVID-19. And it wasn't just about the losing somebody, but the experience was horrid because when these things were happening, nobody was there to help. See, people are very scared. I mean, I was trying to tell all these people who call me that it is not that they are, people started feeling that are the people now losing the humanity, or are they becoming a little crude, or they are not anymore kind. Because see, this is like yesterday also, the only daughter of that man, she has done everything right, from collecting body from the hospital to the crematorium. And this is also happened in the first lockdown. That boy, 22-year-old, nobody came to help. Now this is something which is little shocking for the people. And even if they understand that situation is such, but feeling lonely, coping up with the loss, and going through this kind of loneliness while performing very the duties which are very painful, all by alone. Not only that, there are quite a few people who are apprehensive. Like I remember this lady, I must quote her. She brought, she bought a lot of cake from the shopkeeper, and by mistake, the boy who gave her the bag touched her. Okay, now after that, what she started doing, she started telling husband, am I going to get it, am I going to get the corona? Not only that, she made her husband to speak to me. I was talking almost 4-5 times a day, and she was so restless. Now see, she was restless till she calculated 14 days. Okay, after 14 days, she was a little relaxed. Till then, everybody in the house was probably not able to sleep, simply because this lady wasn't sleeping, and she was so anxious of contracting the disease. Simply by her touching, she came, she washed hand, she in fact kept washing hands so often. So this is something which is very happening time and again. And it's very tough. It's very tough.
Dr. Shetty, Akash Ranabat has said, why is it that the death of Sushant Singh Rajput is affecting us so badly? It feels like a personal loss. I can't believe it. I can't forget it. How does one overcome this? Is this something you hear often?
Well, in Tamil Nadu, we had this phenomenon when great leaders died. A lot of people passed away. Uh, what has happened now is everything is coming together. So he passed away by suicide If you would have died of an accident, things would have been different. If you would have died of a heart attack, it would have been different. But a lot of discussion around that. I still remember when Dhananjay Chatterjee, I think, was hanged to death in Kerala, in Bengal. A lot of debate on what is the size of the nose, how long will be the thread, and how will he be hanged, and so many people died around that time. Nafisa Joseph, the great model who passed away, I think, more than a decade ago, and a lot of discussion on that, and there were many copycat suicides. So, what was important is the media reporting guidelines were flouted by almost everybody. That's number one. Number two, what is also very important is that those on the fence, those on the fence feel that the gentleman whatever did was right, and they can tip over the fence when somebody so lovable, so famous is discussed across time. So I would say it's not the death of Sushant alone which has caused the problem. It's the way the dialogues around him is. Even now there are people on Twitter who are reporting the copycat suicide very widely, which you're not supposed to do. The third is because of the COVID scenario. There's a lot of isolation, being loneliness. I see at least 4 to 5 women and men who are saying that they want to die because he passed away. And it's so difficult. And three things which really worked in all these cases where whom I have met: social support. When they are with the family, they are better off, and when they're supported by the family, understood, the chances of them harming themselves is much better. Recurrent and more contact with the psychologist or the psychiatrist. And number three, more contact with their peers who will not judge them and who will really be around them till this passes off. So I think the narrative on Twitter, on the media, the number of videos, the number amount of confusion whether he died or whether he was murdered, the amount of media coverage also has been one of the most important reasons. And Bombay, India is in a state where depression is more endemic and probably more pandemic than any virus.
Doc, there are a couple of questions that have come in. Fatima Lukmani has said this. Neeraj Kumar has also said it, saying that I don't feel like working. I just want to sit and do nothing all day. I know that, people started off this lockdown saying, oh, we're going to do this. And everybody was being really careful and people figured out how to live in the lockdown. But by week 3 and 4, that energy sapped out. So is this something you see from a lot of people? People just not feeling like it?
There are 3 types of people. One, types like me who would want not to work for some time. It's not because I'm depressed, but I want to take a break because a lot of calls coming in and I'm really getting exhausted and tired, and that is normal. The the second is there's a lot of bashing of employees online. I'll tell you what. There's a lot of emotional bashing by the seniors in a lot of cases where there's online work. Probably everybody is stressed and tense. Probably the anger is passed off from the top down. And a lot of people are complaining that the bosses are becoming very abusive, very irritable, and they're shouting and screaming for no reason. A lot of jobs are being lost. A major reality company has thrown out 75 people yesterday. 75 people. It's there in the news. If you read Money Control, you see it. And all those who have not been thrown are terribly tense, terribly tense. So this is also one of the most common cause. Chhod do, yeah, there's an existential thing. Chhod do, yeah, bilkul nahi karenge. Third is online work causes burnout much faster than live work, and that also is very important. And last is, if you are alone, if there's no support, if there's nobody who understands you, if there's you are doing online work, you're not doing any work. I'm cooking at home. I'm doing this. My kids are like this. So if there's no support and empathy towards men and women who do online work, there's a lot of despondency. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. One vice president of a company was asked to leave. Now he has an EMI which he has to pay. No banks are charitable, by the way. They will operate through their own bureaucratic rules. Nothing happens. The banks will go after them. and he wants to sell his flats there. He goes to a smaller flat somewhere in Binder Mirror. He's not able to sell, he's not able to buy. Everybody is ashamed. There's no cash at home. There's no liquid at home. And in India, Faye, we are disconnected to a very great extent. We are connected in terms of Ludo, Carom, chess, Jhadu Pota. But in terms of real material support, India is a disconnected society as of now. There are multiple factors, but what end point is that you could land up not doing anything, and if that is not tackled early, you may land up with a serious depression, and that is something very important. I'm writing a mental health program for the city in the last 3 days, and I believe that there has to be a massive contact program with the people of the city, because cities are more lonely and isolated than my village, that is Bangalore.
That is true. Cities are more lonely and isolated. In fact, let me just read out a few more of the comments that are coming in. There's someone who has said that, my emotions are swinging from hope to anxiety to nervousness through the day. I'm not sure what to do. How do we overcome negative thoughts? How do we overcome the insensitivity or the loss of humanity that is taking place? How do we deal with people shaming cautious behavior, saying that you're being paranoid too much? Is social distancing a bad idea? There's a lot of this, but I just want to bring in Harish, Iyer. Harish, I know that a lot of the people in the LGBTQI community call you when they're feeling depressed and suicidal. Have the number of calls increased?
They have considerably increased because now what has happened is now because of the lockdown, everyone is at home. The children are with their homophobic parents. There are people whose gender expression is different, where they and suddenly they can't wear. They have left their hostels, they have left their cities where they were working, and now they've come back to their homes. Previously, they used to wear a sari. They were their sex assigned at birth was male, but they lived away from their families. They used to wear nail polish. They used to wear saris, but suddenly they have to they have to adhere to what their parents expect them to behave, what their gender their parents think that they are. So I think all this has led to a widespread fear within the queer community. And also, besides this, we also have the regular problems that Dr. Harish Shetty was speaking about. I mean, the queer community gets affected by the same problems that the other community gets affected. In addition to that, you have this you have this fear of hiding, and there's a lot of relationships which are getting broken now uh, because of the distance, because people are with their families now, and suddenly, so all of this thing is getting added up, and the number of calls that have increased and have also had an effect on people who take these calls as well. Like Dr. Shetty was also saying, like I was so low last week, Faye. For some odd reason, I had suicidal ideation, and at 4 o'clock in the night, I called up I called up my loved one, and I called him up, and I spoke to him, and I told him I need you on the call right now. And then he wasn't there, so he called me back. And had I not had that phone call, I wouldn't. And we often think that that people sit and, I mean, at that moment you don't know what is happening, because when you're listening to all this, you're being an empath and you're listening to all this. There are times when you're not able to maintain the distance, and it seeps in as well. Then I took a break for a few days, and then I was all right once again. But at that moment, you don't know what actually provokes you to behave, and there's no way to decide and decipher and later on what exactly happened at that time. It's so important that caretakers look after themselves also. And the next thing I did was I called up my psychologist, I called up my psychiatrist, and I took some medication. I ensured that I was fit after that, because I knew what is to be done. But but I thought that I was oblivious to it. I thought that I wouldn't. I'm the savior who can go and save out other people, but I wouldn't get affected at all. But the truth is, the saviors also need some saving at times, and I'm okay to acknowledge that I'm strong because I'm weak. at times, and I acknowledge that.
That's actually a really powerful thing to say. I want to thank Tanay Shastri for using the Supertile chat feature to support my team and myself. Thank you so much. I also want to bring in at this point Rohit Kumar. Rohit, I know that you speak to students a lot. And in my conversations with young people, there was a period of abject terror for students in the 10th and 12th standard because they didn't know whether their exams would be held this year or not. There were 3 or 4 papers on the ICSE and CBSE that were pending. It was on again, off again. They didn't know. They had to study for it, but they were under a lot of stress. Then it finally was cancelled. I know this is happening to a lot of college students as well, especially those in Delhi University who've written to us saying that they're struggling. What have you heard from students and from young people?
I think there's a spectrum of how people are feeling and experiencing these things, right? And also that spectrum is then further intersected with the groups and the classes and the communities that young people come from. So the challenges and concerns of children coming from low-income home would look very different than the challenges coming for children coming from, say, middle-income home or high-income homes, right? For example, when our work primarily concerns working with children from the Ghatkopar, Kurla, Govandi, Mankhurd, these areas in Mumbai, which are predominantly low-income homes, right? Where the challenge was that children were seeing their parents on day-to-day basis that there's no food and my dad is not able to get food on the table, right? That spectrum, and then this other spectrum of students where we hear in Kerala, there's a female student committed suicide because she was not able to attend online course, right? So we need to unpack this with a understanding of how social systems are engaging our children. And for many children, initially it was like, oh, this it's an extended holiday because initially when you're not required to do anything, school is off, you are having fun. Many children experience that, but then after every 2 weeks, when things started changing, and I think that's when it started for them to recognize that, and especially the adolescent children, right? Because adolescence is also an age where your social identity has started forming. You want to be out more than in more. Like when you are 10 and below, you want to be with your parents. But you're 11 and 12, puberty has hit you. You want to be with your friends. You want to roam around, and all of that has just suddenly just stopped, right? And that then starts building, and then you don't have access to phone because there might be only one phone in the house. Parents are accessing it for several reasons. All of these triggers, which are actually systemic triggers, these triggers exist in the ecosystem for young people. Now, when that kind of multiply with, say, academic pressure, when that multiplies with the ambiguity and unknown of what's going to happen with my life, especially when I'm in a 10th or 12th standard person, when I'm hoping for life, I'm imagining for life and thinking of future, right? And that's what the society and my family and my schools have taught me, that keep yourself in the future. There's some distant future in the world, in the life that you're going to aspire towards. We have never been taught to be here and now, right? That doesn't happen in our ecosystem in this country.
Right?
Aage ka socho, right? And abhi aage kuch bacha nahi. So what do we do? And that is going to be really scary thought for a young person. Or when I don't know what to do in this now. And I think that is what has impacted really hard. And especially, I think what Dr. Shetty was also speaking earlier, right? While schools have gone online, but the amount of screen time, how is that being managed? The teacher's life, like what Harish was saying, save the savior. Teachers have gone through massive stress, like enormous amount of stress. In last 2 months, I know because my team has had to kind of take everything online. And then you're also figuring out what does it online education mean for young people. So the system is inducing stress into the ecosystem. This is a really beautiful organization called Dream a Dream, and their founder said this really beautiful conversation. They started something called what if we take a pause? What if we would have just paused for a second and looked at what's going on before started responding to everything, right? And that capacity we don't have as a society. We don't take those pauses, and I think the lack of coaching of that, and then that has to start super early. And Sucheta, who is the CEO of Dream a Dream, she said really beautiful thing, that a crisis is not a time when you fix a culture, it is a reflection of the culture, right? So what Dr. Shetty was speaking earlier, that the amount of that mental health crisis is a pandemic in India in itself that we don't even know of, right? for last 8 years, Apni Shala has been trying to battle the stigma of just being able to talk about emotions, right, with young people. So I think that's the challenge that we are facing. And when we also look at mental health, I think when you spoke in the beginning about what is inducing this anxiety or depression, that's on the right side of the spectrum. It starts from distress and not being able to manage my emotional distress. I don't have skills to do that. So what would it look like? What if we were able to coach? We were coached about that in the schools.
Yes. In fact, I have a lot of these questions that are coming in. If I may just take them, Dr. Parkar, if you would take a question for me, please. I have a question from someone who said that after the actor's death, and I'm assuming this is Sushant, this is an individual who was already going through depression, who was battling suicidal thoughts. He got a lot of calls from people saying, "Are you okay?" And that put him back into the place that he had crawled out of with great difficulty, because it reminded this individual that, oh, I'm supposed to be, I'm a depressed person who is considering suicide and all of these things. So it sort of shoved the person and messed the person up all the more, because everybody was calling saying, oh, are you okay? Are you not? I hope you're not considering this. How do you deal with a situation like that?
See, this is a very important situation. We have to understand the feeling of desperate, because there are three important emotional feelings which are linked with suicide. The first is the helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, and besides that, feeling desperate. Okay, and this is a very important, because right now it's not just vulnerable, but almost everybody is experiencing that feeling of being trapped and feeling desperate, because when whole thing started, we were not prepared. I mean, the world wasn't prepared for coronavirus, neither India. And I think everything came suddenly. Neither we were prepared for lockdown life. We, to begin with, I also can say I am a workaholic person. So I thought probably the first lockdown, maybe the second lockdown, but we were trying to look at, oh, somewhere, that life which we are used to get back. This is, extending. And see, all of us as a human being, we have limit of tolerance. Okay. There is a limit of frustration tolerance, and this is going beyond, for everybody in a way. Some of the people probably will be able to adjust better, simply because they know how to adjust. Now, in case of Sushant, remember that one important thing Sushant probably gets into people's mind is something which happened to him was unfair. And when the feeling of unfair, comes in the picture, all of us, as a human being, start sympathizing, start empathizing. And today, everybody is empathizing and sympathizing. And remember, his suicide, like many other suicide, it is being already publicized a lot, and it is, fictionalized. Okay, like people are talking about his romantic affair, his relationship, and everything probably from this particular cycle can be identified with. So there are so many people, so many young people. I mean, in the first week of Sushant's suicide, there were so many of clients and so many people I knew call me just to feel that it is too hard to live, alone, to live with the dejection. So this is something which people are identified fine with. And very important aspect, how to deal with the in this situation. The first thing which we always follow, and that's a very important, when the person is in emotional crisis, when the person is at the age, one important thing which we must take care of is that person should not be left alone. Okay, there should be some kind of emotional support, some kind of support where the person probably start feeling safe. And that's the reason why this gentleman who was asked that, are you all right, I think this comes out of this particular concern. Everybody probably is trying to give him support, and this is a supportive, because that's what they can be doing on telephone or something like that. And that is what is happening, because I think people have to know one important thing, that depression is not the end of the life. Okay, I have to quote here a person like Abraham Lincoln, okay, the president of America. Remember, whole life he had depression. In fact, when he took over America in the hand, he was still undergoing depression. But when he took this bigger horizon in his hand, which is very important because depression was inside, probably Abraham Lincoln started looking outside, getting engaged to the outside challenge, and maybe the depth of his depression, maybe the width of his depression became smaller than the width and the depth of the America. I think this is very important example I always quote to my clients, that we are depressed, but people generally, and which I am worried as a cognitive therapist, they are worried about being depressed. Okay, so there is a depression at primary level, and there is a concern and anxiety of being depressed at the secondary level, and this is something which complicates the issue. And what we need to do, or the support people who are supporting, they may not be professional, but to take away that second level anxiety, making people comfortable that emotional disturbance, yes, it is there, which is probably many people will have, and you need to cope up with. So this is something which I feel we all, because we are far away from the people, but maybe on the phone, something which we can help people to relax and just get out of that second level anxiety, which is must. Okay, and that is how perhaps we have to start dealing with. That's the beginning of dealing with.
Thank you also to Vamsi Vasi Reddy, who has also used the super chat feature to give us $1,000. Thank you. The more you donate, it helps us pay salaries and helps us continue to do this independent work without depending on anybody else. Dr. Shetty, I want to ask you about it, and picking up from what Rohit said earlier, what Harish said earlier, when people lose their jobs, and there's so much of that happening, you also pointed it out, it's happening at every level. So there are families where a parent has been lost to COVID. There are families where a parent has lost their jobs. And so now the reality of these families has changed completely. And there are children, there are young people, there are teenagers who are looking around and they don't have that anchor anymore, because either the parent has lost their job and the children are aware of the kind of stress that brings in, or the parent is lost completely. And that's a completely different worldview. What sort of impact will this have psychologically on children and young people and teenagers? And what should the adults be doing to look out for them and make sure that they're okay?
Just before answering the question, a quick addition
Yes.
to what Shubhangi said so beautifully about Abraham Lincoln. The gentleman who would not feel the compassion when people ask him, is he okay? Should immediately go back to his psychologist and psychiatrist and check whether hopelessness is there. So that is number one. So all those people who are related, who feel related to the actor, if they feel that he has done a good thing, they should immediately go to a psychiatrist. If they feel they want to join him, they should be immediately taken to a psychologist or psychiatrist. Third is, if they are constantly seeing his news all the time, they should stop seeing the news. And if they feel very disturbed, they should see a psychiatrist. And number fourth is, those who are crying about him all the time. I've got phone calls from actors, from singers. They've been crying. They can't stop crying. They should not wait, but go and see a psychologist. As Harish said, don't wait. These are emergency times. You need to increase the frequency of meeting with your support system and your psychologist. That's important. Now, I have got a lot of people. I had two brothers who passed away in different hospitals, 40s, and the mother came back who was in her 70s. The mother has not been told that these two sons have passed away, but intuitively they know. Three things. I don't think there's a lack of humanity. Most of the bodies are cremated by the state. There is no cremation by the family. There's no closure at all, as Shubhangi would also know. Number one is immediately contact those whom you trust and those who don't judge you, and not to be ashamed of your tears. Don't play macho. Don't play brave. Don't play strong, as Harish beautifully said. Immediately be aware of your tears and share the truth with your children. Remember, the simplest minds are the most profound. So when you are sharing your tears, your anxiety goes down because you get connected with your family and connected to others who love you and do not want to judge you. That's number one. When the family cries together, they get bonded and they become strong. The second most important thing is in life you have multiple WhatsApp groups. Some of them are meaningless. You have multiple friends on Facebook. Some of them are meaningless. But across life, as Rohit is laughing, you have certain people where you are not ashamed. So so again I repeat on a show, third time, kill your shame and say, Nanga hu, job gaya hai, lafda hai, I need help. I have done that all my life. I have collected 5,000 rupees from every friend 25 years back. 15 years back, I collected 75 पैसा चाहिए नहीं है मैं वापस दूंगा and no shame, this is what I am. My life is not in my visiting card. The visiting card can have addresses which change, and visiting card may have no addresses also. It can only have your name and your number. So that is something which is very important. The second most important thing is across life you have been through mentors. You have had mentors. Some mentors who have helped you. Some people who have touched your lives. Hold their hands. Don't ask for money. And when brains meet and they start talking, new things come up, and that I think is very important. The second most important thing is in the pandemic, as I've said, protect your brain and rework your dreams. Go up the ladder, but don't be ashamed to go down the ladder because meaningful vocation helps mental health. And the third thing is, I always tell it might look very condescending, but I'm very honest when I say this. If you can't afford a mango, have a banana. If you can't afford a pomfret, have mandili. But eat. And in spite of everything has happened, have joyous moments with the family. If you can't go to Taj, have bhel puri at home. These things are very important. Enjoy, have those moments in spite of everything lost. And let me tell you, Corona will go away, jobs will come, jobs will go. You will never quit or retire from the same company. Kill shame, seek help. There's no shame. And when you seek help, I'll just share this small anecdote in 10 seconds. I always used to make a group of A, B, C. A, they will give me money. B, 50-50. They might not. C, they will not give. But you know what? Harish and Rohit and Shubhangi and Faye, the C group offered me help. Koi sharam nahi, boss. Koi sharam nahi. So that is what you may have been a vice president, managing director, CEO. Who cares? These are all illusions. Go back to your basics and reach out.
I haven't talked about this a lot, and I might think that given all of the things that are being said on the side right now, it might be a brave time to talk about this myself. I mean, when I changed jobs, I left my previous job. It had nothing to do with COVID. This happened in September, October last year, and I felt like a lot of my self-worth was tied to my job. Quite honestly, every morning when people would be leaving in the building in their cars going to work and I had nowhere to go, I would have physical anxiety of not having anywhere to go, not knowing if I will ever find my feet again, not knowing if I would ever be of the same worth that I was when I had that job. And it took a lot of work for me to find my feet. And there are good days and there are bad days. There are good days. Thank you, doctor. Good days and bad days. There are some days when I'm very, very scared, and there are some days when I'm very proud of the work that I'm doing. But I think the most important thing for me is what Dr. Shetty just said, that your worth and your entire identity is not in your designation. It's in who you are. It's in the people who love you. It's in the people you love. It's in how much good you can do. It's how much influence you have to be able to make a change. And very honestly, and this is a really very simple thing to say, I discovered a good friend who distributes food. And on a regular basis, I go with this friend and I help in distributing food to hungry people. And it just makes you so happy. There's absolutely zero effort involved. And it's 20 rupees for a plate of food, but it just fills you with so much hope and joy. And it's not about feeling like, oh, these people are poor. It's just that smile on another person's human face when you give them food and they say thank you and they ask you for a little more. That interaction just helps. So I think it's also about finding ways in which we can reach out to each other. And that brings me to my next question to the entire panel. Several people are talking about how social distancing might be a bad thing. I also think that we might be mixing up social distancing with emotional distancing. And it isn't necessary just because we're socially distant that we needn't find moments of human interaction. So let me start, if I may, with Dr. Shubhangi. Social distancing, Dr. Shubhangi, has caused, especially people who are living alone. If you have your family with you, then you have someone to argue with, you have someone to talk to, you have someone to cook with at home. But if you're alone, there's difficulty simply getting out of bed, because why? What is the reason to get up and what is the reason to do anything? So what is your advice for people who have found themselves even emotionally isolated right now?
It's a very important, because just last week 80 years old gentleman called me. In the house everything is fine, son is there, daughter-in-law is there, and he is staying, they are taking care of him. But because of social distancing, because of lockdown, he is not able to go and sit with that group of the people where he shares lot of his emotional aspect. Or maybe he's a poet, he writes a lot, so he says that I get मुफ्त का crowd है तो मैं मेरी महफिल सजा लेता हूँ. Okay, and he didn't get that opportunity, and he felt very bad, he felt left out. And the son and daughter-in-law also became upset. What is happening to this old man now, that we are trying to do everything and he just getting upset? So everybody was upset because he was upset, and he couldn't say the reason. I mean, he say, if I tell this to my son, they will think that I am just not thinking that they are my good caretaker, and I'm probably missing. But this is very important, I think, because he is old, not very familiar, with going on WhatsApp, or going on the using the media so efficiently. So he was feeling very, very lost. Now, in such a people, I was asking this person, what are the other things? Because see, in the life, what you need is a meaningful aspect. Even in the suicide, everybody feels suicide probably at some point. But remember that mother, for example, who is committed to the children, in spite of alcoholic husband, in spite of facing domestic violence, she has the meaningful reason to live, is her investment, her emotional investment in her children. Okay, so here I was asking, and then he said probably he has to get into reading the books which he was reading in the past, and discussing that he had that friend with whom he discussed those books during the college time. Okay, so I said pick up all that thing, because being elderly, having comorbid diabetes and hypertension, it was pretty hard for him to walk out or go just for the sake of feeling refreshed. It wasn't advisable medically. But then this particular person, he started doing a lot many things which are meaningful to him, and he tried to see those movies also which were old. He told his son that you may not like, so 46, 45, 50 years old movies he could find. He saw that, he had the discussion with his sister who was equally old, had the communication with his friend, and started discussing those books. And even then, about jokes, narrating those poems which he has written. So I think it's finding out what is meaningful, where you are emotionally connected. So that's the best way of fighting this particular social distancing, is getting back to emotionally connectedness in whichever area you feel. People, of course, I mean, it's not easy. I also miss my friends where you keep gossiping in KM, or what happens in other hospitals. Not that sort of things which are enjoyable, but that is not possible right now. So do something which probably you always enjoyed, and connecting to the friends matters a lot.
Right.
Relatives are there, yeah.
So just Harish, this is the other thing. There are a lot of young people who are living alone in cities, away from their parents, away from their families. A lot of times roommates have either left and gone home, and these people are now alone in their apartments. Are you getting a sense also that loneliness is also part of the larger feeling here?
I think yes. One one uncertainty is definitely a part of the whole thing, and then loneliness when you're alone and you are uncertain about what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, even loneliness in what context? I mean, you could be with 100 people and you could still be lonely. So that's what they are feeling because they have suddenly started feeling. I know a lot of people who suddenly. I mean, I feel like that, and we or many of us would have felt like that when you're actually in a group of people and you have everyone around you, but you feel lonely because you feel that this responsibility that has come up to me and I'm not able to do this. That's why I feel lonely. So it might. I've seen people in fantastic relationships who have loving partners and still they would this thing and you would keep wondering you would keep you would want to go and ask them like, everything you've got everything, why are you bothered about this? And that's the most insensitive question that we ask people, that why you've got everything and why do you think it's affecting you? Because this, if there's something that's universal and that can affect everybody, it is mental health, and everyone would go through some breakdown. And in fact, if your life is too happy all the time, then that's a reason to worry, because you have no degree of comparison in your life. So if it's too happy, then you will find a breakdown for yourself. Everyone would look for a good breakdown in their lives if it's very this thing. So that's how people are wired, because we need these degrees of comparisons. And I think at that moment, Faye, it becomes so important that I have a diary right now. Somewhere in that diary, I have written your name also, where I know exactly if I'm in this stage, whom do I need to reach out to? If these are my close people, and sometimes you need to reevaluate these things again and again. See who are your 5 people whom you would reach out to, and whom you could be shameless about. I could speak about my sexual relations, about my emotional relations, about my capabilities, and more importantly, about everything that I'm incapable about, or everything that I could be broken about. And those are those precious bonds which we need to invest in. And you'd realize that sometimes those bonds are not your spouses, they are not your parents. It could be somebody whom you have just met in the train, who could be who could be that friend, who you could call up in the dead of the night and reach out to that person. So I think it becomes incredibly important to understand loneliness from that aspect of people, nameless relationships, nameless people who could actually have a significant role to play in your life to making you who you
Yes.
are.
Dr. Shetty, the other group of people I want to talk about are senior citizens. I know that senior citizens are right now feeling very isolated because they're physically being told in many cities not to come out of the house at all. So on one hand, they've got their kids who are now grown, who live in other cities. They're losing their jobs. So there's the stress of how will this person manage? How will they run their house? What's going to happen in the future? They're constantly being told through media and through maybe their own building societies that you are at risk, you should not come out of the house. Senior citizens who get this virus don't survive. This is a terrible thing. You should not hug your grandchildren. And there's this whole fear of, if I get it, there are no hospital beds. People are being treated badly. My children who live in other cities cannot fly back to look after me. So who's going to look after me if this happens to me? So that's a tremendous amount of anxiety to put on anybody, whether they're senior citizens or otherwise. But there's specifically these feelings happening right now to people, to seniors who are living by themselves. What can we do? What should be done? How can we help them? How can they help themselves?
I think because of this incessant message that you're senior, 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 the younger guys are taking more risks. And though we do not have data, epidemiologic data, I've seen a lot of younger men and women succumbing to this infection because they're taking more risks. That's the adverse effect of this entire campaign. So there are 3, 4 things. I got a call from a very senior citizen who was alone because his family had gone to USA and they're trapped there, and they're going to come back on the 9th. But he had terrible anxiety, and he says, "I don't know why I'm anxious, but I can't sleep." So I had to give him some medication stock. But his family is going to come 4 days from now. And he started doing a lot of things inside the house. And he said, when I was doing a lot of things, I forgot everything. I just forgot my anxiety because he was preparing the house for them to return. So remember, powerful distractions, as Shubhangi also shared, for the elderly is extremely important. Go back to your basics. I cannot forget the films of Madhubala. They are my anti-anxiety and anti-depression. When I see a coy smile and when I see Kishore Kumar dancing after him, I feel nice. So you are not alone. Joy and love needs no distance. There's no distance. So joy is a right. Elderly should understand joy is a right. So they should go back to their the gloom busters, their mood lifters and their mood shifters and care a heck for anybody around. Number two. Because if they smile, the family also feels very relaxed. That is very important. So everybody is watching. वो हंसता है, वो tension में, मैं tension में क्या है? So elderly have the wisdom to smile. They have the wisdom to smile. Number two. Number two is when the elderly pick up little stories of their life and start sharing, and they have a lot of stories much more wilder than Harish, Iyer and Harish Shetty and Shubhangi and Rohit. And if they start sharing, my God, the atmosphere across countries change when they talk to people from across countries. Number three is that Batao, the secretary of the building, occasionally so that they can quietly go for a round. Be proactive. Number four, do not miss the depression among the elderly. If they start talking about Atta काय करायचं, what to do, I've done everything in life, screen the person for depression. If he or she is not eating, screen the person for depression. And the family members of all these elderly people across the world, don't become corona researchers. We don't want you to do any research. Stay away. Lastly, elderly also have other issues. Like, for example, if the sugar is not under control, the moods will change. If the blood pressure is not under the control, the moods will change. So they have to be very stickler to all the medicines. And elderly love to do yoga. Let them do yoga. Humor and laughter can happen even when you're alone. To me, it happens when I'm alone. And when I go back through all my memories, I feel like crying, laughing, and loving. Love and joy needs no proximity. And once the lockdown is lifted, you're going to get tighter hugs from people whom you love because sabar ka phal bahut meetha hota hai. So my message to all the elderly, stay alive. Nothing's going to happen to you if your blood pressure, hypertension under control, and don't hesitate to make the first move with your friends, with your colleagues, with your ex-friends, with your wife, your spouse, husband, or your children, or your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law. You pick up the phone and talk to your son. Don't wait. Mera beta mujhe nahi puchta hai. Mera bahu mujhe nahi puchta hai. Cut all the crap and pick up the phone and be proactive with people. Depression, take action, and that I think is very important.
Really well said. Rohit, I'm getting a lot of messages again from college students saying final year students, there's a big mess with the exams. People are stressed out also about admissions, about entrance exams, the next year, what happens, all of that.
NEET exam also, NEET and JEE.
NEET exam, all of this, there's so much uncertainty. I think really the word that describes everything in everybody's life at this point is uncertainty. Nobody knows how this is going to play out and for how much longer we're going to be like this. What advice are you giving students or young people who are, who are suffering from this anxiety about their future?
I think the first thing, Faye, is that to be able to acknowledge those feelings, or to be able to name those feelings. Okay, anxiety is coming to me. I am experiencing, fear. I'm experiencing, so naming it. So in our work, we say this a lot, that people are not the problem. Problem is the problem. So locating problem outside people's bodies, right? The problem is that I don't know whether the government has decided and made up a mind that when the exams will happen, when they will be cancelled or not. It's not my problem. It doesn't reside in my body, right? So seeing in Hindi में हम लोग बोलते हैं ना गुस्सा आ रहा है या खुशी आ रही है, right? So we see it outside our bodies. It becomes more manageable. Also in mind.
Actually, Rohit, आप हिंदी में ही बोलिए, ज़्यादा लोगों को समझ में आए.
So जब हम बात करते हैं कि गुस्सा आ रहा है या खुशी आ रही है, तो क्या हो जाता है कि it is not. I am not problematizing my body, right? Which means that I'm fine. People are not the problem. Like when you were saying that, when you were transitioning from work, all of these, kabhi confusion aata hai, kabhi dar aata hai, kabhi khushi aati hai, right? So when we start acknowledging it in that fashion, we also start realizing it's like, those clouds in the sky, they come. जब बारिश चली जाए हो जाएगी तो चले जाएंगे, right? It's like that. So just recognizing that aspect is the first step. To acknowledge them, name them, and sit with them for as long as it feels like you need to sit with it, right? We use something called externalization in our work, and that again comes from narrative ideas, where we talk about how can you talk to your emotions. Agar worry aa rahi hai, do you want to draw this out? Do you want to name this and have a conversation with this worry? What is this worry bringing to you, right? Is it bringing other friends of worry? For example, worry के साथ anxiety आ जा रहा है, गुस्सा आ जा रहा है, frustration आ जा रही है, ये सब उसके साथ आते हैं. All right, so what friends do you want to invite? I want to invite hope, right? And in that case, then it becomes very, very important to what I think Dr. Harish also spoke about, the present moment focus. Being able to see, okay, अभी इतना ही possible है, कुछ चीजें out of मेरे control हैं, वो government अगर जब decision लेगा तो लेगा ना, अभी मैं उसका तो कुछ नहीं कर सकता. Just recognizing our sphere of control, that this is what I can possibly do, and doing that. And I think, which means that if today, what Harish was saying, that if I need to kind of list down the friends that I have that I can talk to, make a list of that. If it means that I need to play some games on phone, or even like in home, I have started playing with ball in my house, right? That ball was there forever in the house, I never used it. So start seeing that what is there right now with me that I can possibly do, being able to take that action, stay in connection with people as much as possible. And there are multiple ways right now, and there are cheaper ways to do that. As you rightly said, social distancing doesn't have to mean emotional distancing, right? And that ability, I'll give you a very small example. हम लोग relief काम कर रहे हैं, और जिसमें हम parents को call करते हैं, पूछते हैं खाना है कि नहीं. And एक parent के घर में रात का dinner नहीं था, right? और उसने बातों बातों में बताना शुरू किया कि this colleague of mine, Aditi, was on call, and she said that Aditi दीदी पता है मेरी बेटी मुझे बताती है कि आप लोग स्कूल में सिखाते हो कि संयम कैसे रखना चाहिए, right? Now this family doesn't have food for the night, and the daughter is talking about संयम, right? So how do we start recognizing and naming these emotions, and then also inviting other possibilities in our conversation? एंड ये तभी काफी खूबसूरती से पॉसिबल हो पाता है जब हम देख पाते हैं कि हमारी जिंदगी में जो क्लब ऑफ लाइफ बोलते हैं ना, कि हमारे लाइफ के क्लब में कौन कौन लोग हैं, एंड कीपिंग देयर मेंबरशिप अलाइव, स्टेइंग इन टच विद देम, कीपिंग इन कॉन्वर्सेशन विद देम, एंड फोकस को वापस से जितनी बार पॉसिबल हो सके वापस प्रेजेंट में लेके आना. वो बार बार भागेगा, दैट्स द नेचर ऑफ द माइंड, इट विल कीप रनिंग टू द पास्ट एंड टू द फ्यूचर, बट हाउ डू आई ब्रिंग इट बैक? एंड रिमेंबर दैट द ब्लू स्काई इज ऑलवेज देयर. Clouds come, they will go, and the blue sky stays there. So I think that practice is important.
Very, very beautifully said. I loved what you said.
Thank you, Dr. Shetty.
Dr. Shubhangi, questions coming in about one's sleep cycles. That basically people who aren't able to sleep, and we're seeing a lot of that in this lockdown. That's one. Dips has written in, this is a question for Dr. Shetty, saying a lot of parents and students are stressed because they have to go out and buy laptops and tablets. There aren't enough screens because everybody has to study, and not, they don't have so many devices in the house. How should they deal with the crisis? So I'll come back to that, because there's also an angle of very high school fees that need to be paid. Jobs have been lost on one side, salary cuts. At the same time, schools are asking for lakhs and lakhs of rupees with no justification. So I'll come back to that. But first, Dr. Shubhangi, sleep cycle, how important is it for us to sleep and to make sure that you're not sleeping properly to remedy that situation?
Yeah. It's very important, because sleep is extremely important in terms of our health in general and mental health in particular, because all those lifestyle diseases, they get haywire if the sleep is not being maintained. The first thing which is very important, that being at home, have we broken that sleep cycle, which we have to know. There is something called the sleep hygiene. We are in corona situation talking about hygiene, how to keep ourselves clean, but that sleep hygiene is a very important irrespective of corona. And that is where we have to just check that, everybody should be able to understand what is the sleep requirement for a person. Okay. I mean, people can sleep only for 5 hours, and some people need 8 hours sleep. So we have to identify like that, and we have to keep the timing of the sleep properly, because nowadays what is happening, being at home, अभी कल क्या करने का है, कभी भी उठेंगे तो चलेंगे, ऐसे नहीं होता है. We have to maintain those sleeping hours properly, and remember that there are certain aspects. For example, we have to, as the days go down, basically we have to get that serenity across. Okay, because nowadays it is disturbing. It is disturbing even for me. I keep hearing the deaths of the people I know, and this is a very bad time. One of the time for feeling desperate and feeling absolute blues is because now we started listening to the death of those known people, which were around. I mean, in the first lockdown it was okay, but today we know, every day I'm scared of opening my WhatsApp and just to listen to, just death of some doctor, some nurse. So these are some of the issues where we have to be very, very clear. I tell people, pandemic is the era where perhaps we do not have enough time, to express or experience the, this sadness. So what I tell them, one important thing, sir salamat tur pagdi pachas, that we are alive today, and we have to enjoy that we are alive, and we should be happy about that. And if possible, what we need to do, if we can be useful to, get out of anxiety, we should be giving the helpful words to the people about the sleep. No coffee in the evening. Coffee probably triggers the sleeplessness. No tea in the evening. Okay, basically after 8 o'clock, don't do any activities which except this show, basically, which probably gives us lot of information and lot of solace. Otherwise, yes.
Not this also at the evening.
No. We have to practice after 8 o'clock a lot of things which probably deal with the serenity. Maybe we listen to beautiful songs, maybe the bhajans, good thought. I think we have to train the mind about good thought, to enjoy those good thoughts, not those irritating. Don't ever think about the irritating boss in the night. Okay, daytime is good enough. Okay, so this is a very, very important. Even if you have to fight with your spouse, not the day. I mean, always the daytime. I mean, enough 12 hours are there, not in the night. Okay, night is just soothing. A beautiful, nice music. If just get back to those romantic feeling if you are with your spouse. Otherwise, good dreams, which will be important. Nothing we should think about impossibility. Everything in the night begins. We should have to see good dreams. चांद देखेंगे, sky देखेंगे, अच्छे लोगों की याद करेंगे. I think that's a time for us to remember good people and remember those people who sleep well. Okay, they can induce a good sleep. Then if you have pets, I always see my pet sleeping so
I
nice.
can't see your cat today. I
Yes,
can't
he's
see your cat.
sleeping inside, basically. So
He
I
was
think
on the sofa last night.
yeah, and good tuning, which is very important. Sleep is
Yes.
important, absolutely important. So we have to, in fact, Faye can do the whole program on the sleep management, which is a very important perspective. But
Yes.
if there are mental illnesses, the tablets in time, which is very important, because insomnia or the sleep disturbance is one of the important signal of the jeopardize mental health. So or some mental illness, if people are not taking tablets properly, insomnia comes, and that is an important signal. So we have to take care. Don't jump on sleeping pills immediately, please. I mean, there are non-pharmacological methods which we have to practice. Yoga nidra, or pranayam. It's a very, very good. Learn it. I think, and there are enough ways which we can learn pranayam on TV, on a laptop, because there are good programs. So we have to do that. No, not immediately sleeping pills. Keep away from sleeping pills. Till your doctor tells you, not just because you want to.
Okay, Dr. Shetty, there's a very interesting question that has come in from Richa, who says, basically she has a family member who's suffering from anxiety of getting COVID. They're constantly checking all of their statistics, checking their temperature, worried about any one thing going off, worried about getting COVID. There was another question about what happens to people who are just afraid of what's going to happen in the future, afraid of getting on a flight, afraid of having to travel. So there's a lot of that kind of anxiety as well, Doc. What is your response for? Yes.
Corona anxiety is normal. It's an adaptive response. But when it goes beyond a point, I can't go out. First is rational evidence for the fears, irrational evidence against the fears. Put it down. We just did this exercise in a class where I'm learning CBT from the Beck Institute. And that is very important, very rational. When you give a tequila shot of science, a little anxiety goes down. Number two is you generally listen to your favorite doctor. People have this favorite doctors. मैं 20 साल से उसको जानता हूँ. रोहित सही है ना? 20 साल जानता हूँ. So when you listen one line from the favorite doctor, anxiety goes down. Number three, anything to do with the breath exercise. It could be any type of exercise. It could be pranayam, it could be vipassana, shambhavi mahamudra, rosary, tasbih. Breath exercise can really align the mind and the body so that anxiety goes down. Number four, share your anxiety with humor. साला लगता है अपन टपक जाएगा रे, क्या हो गया रे अपने को, अपन टपका तो क्या होगा, अरे सब लोग टपकने वाले हैं आज कल पर अपने वो कोरोना में टपकने का नहीं. So you have to use all the science to be safe. Number five, in spite of that, if there is panic, what happens? Fear is normal. It is not overwhelming. There's some core part of your brain which is rational. But when the entire brain is overwhelmed with irrational thoughts, then you need to stop this irrational thoughts. I just called up, I just spoke to a doctor, an ENT surgeon, who's not slept. I killed anxiety with a small dose of drugs, then had a long chat about her probability of getting corona. Probability of getting corona is very, very, very less in India. And a lot of people are going back. In Bombay, the doubling rate of the virus is of 44 days. From 15 days gone to 44 days. So rational thoughts, lot of support, lot of breath exercises, and if necessary, a small tablet temporarily for some time. I think that is very important. And if they cannot, if they're scared to actually go down, Faye, give them hierarchy of exposures. I have a lawyer, a very big lawyer. I asked him to stand outside his house with the mask, with that face shield and gloves and for 10 minutes. This is सब लोग हंसेंगे, बोलो हंसने दो. Harish Shetty ने कहा है, बोलो तो नहीं हंसेंगे. Then I told him to stand outside the lift. Then I asked him to go down the lift one floor and then come up. And across 3 months now he's able to go and buy bread. So exposure and response prevention is a good behavior therapy exercise to really bring down anxiety and cut anxiety. Sometimes you might need a companion, but slowly you can withdraw the companion. So there are multiple exercises to bring down anxiety. Let them go on the net, but rely on a friendly neighborhood counselor and not a national. For schools, just 10 seconds. Schools have to be kind. Schools have to give enough facilities for EMIs. People are leaving international schools and they're saying we'll homeschool the kids because we have no lakhs to pay because our jobs have gone. I have a radical thought over this. Rohit, you will not agree. 1 साल का sabbatical दो यार. Teachers का salary का एक दिक्कत है. 1 साल का sabbatical दो, ये 2-3 महीने आगे क्या करते हो? नहीं होने वाला है. जहां हॉटस्पॉट है 1 साल का देश में sabbatical दो. 1 साल बच्चे में पढ़ाई नहीं किया तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं वाला. टीचर्स का सैलरी का एक बहुत बड़ा दिक्कत है. Let schools who collect lakhs of rupees for their annual day, Founders Day, annual day, they spend lakhs of rupees. Let them creatively find money to pay the salary of teachers. The government can give ration for 3 months extra for all the poor. Let them find salaries for teachers. Countries run because of mothers, teachers, and constables.
That's really well said. And we are going to, over the next few days, talk about schools charging for transport, for buses, for all of these extra things when none of these things are being used right now. And we'll do a story and a show on that as well. But for now, we've run out of time.
Faye, 1 sec. They are teaching football on Zoom. Can you believe that? Can you teach football on Zoom? My God. So I think we need to be kind to the families, and we need to be kind to our teachers. Thank you. Sorry, Faye, for
Yes.
interrupting.
Actually, very, very well said. Dr. Shetty, Dr. Parkar, Harish, Iyer, and Rohit Kumar, thank you so much for spending time with me today and answering questions to my audience. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for asking such brave questions and being so honest as well. Tanay, Shastri, Vamshi, Dips, and Katyush, thank you for supporting us financially. Remember, we're here every night at 8 p.m. to talk about the things that impact you. So we'll be back again tomorrow. Good night. Stay safe.
Thank you.